coming to you live. Well, not so live by the time you're watching this, but Starship Theater inside of the Electric Starship Arcade in Haltom City, Texas, in front of a dead cardboard audience right now. So if you don't know, we do have cardboard cutouts we usually have on the stage, and they're off the right there. So they're all staring at me. Elf, Kiss, and Willy Wonka, a matter of fact. So, and Elvira, we can't forget her.
Don't forget Bruce Lee.
I am Mike Woods. I'm one of your hosts here, but we do have two other glorious hosts to my right and left.
Mike Murray. I'm from the Geek Pub and the Time Rift Arcade.
And
Roman Saldivar, friend and families of everyone here.
I thought your last name was Honcho.
That's only on the weekends.
Oh, fantastic.
You know, there's been more than once I've tried to look you up on Facebook and could not find you because I forgot your name was different.
He goes by, should I give your alias?
Mike Honcho.
Mike Honcho. If you haven't seen Talladega Nights, watch that movie. First of all, you have not lived until you watch Talladega Nights. But he goes by the name Mike Honcho. So anyway, today we're going to talk about arcades because this is the Starship Rift Arcade Podcast. Yeah. Wow. It's a mouthful, even though we tried to shorten it about 3 times. Starship Rift Arcade Podcast is where we're at today. And this is episode number 2. And today, let's talk about arcades, and specifically arcade machines. We've had a discussion on what an arcade is. If you've missed that, that's episode 1. But the machine, the coin-operated device with the video game or whatnot. Maybe coin, not in this case. We have tape over our coin slots here. But that arcade machine, and, when I was a kid, if I heard that someone outside of a business had an arcade machine, it blew my mind. And there was one guy, I don't know if y'all had this guy in your neighborhood, but he had one in his garage.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
It was a Phoenix, actually, the Century Phoenix, which if you haven't played this game, you're a little kind of bird ship thing at the bottom, and bigger bird things, you shoot at them. And it had a kind of a boss level. I don't remember a whole lot of games having a boss level from back then, but he had a Phoenix in his garage, and I was mesmerized. I couldn't believe that someone that wasn't a business, a gas station or a tilt or a putt-putt, then an arcade machine in their house, in their garage. So where do we get these things? Where did he get it is a question. That may be a question you're asking. And it may be because you want to have the ultimate retro man cave or she shed for you ladies listening. Or you may want to start up an arcade, right? And you need some retro, because we talked about it. You want to have some retro games in there because that's what creates the vibe and gets people coming the door. So where do you get them? And we have some great examples here because I've started an arcade. Mike's also starting an arcade. He's in the process. And this young man has some games at his house.
I do.
So let's talk about it a little bit, Mike.
And those are technically all arcades.
They are arcades.
It's just a home arcade.
Yep. A home arcade, exactly. Yeah. And do you have 1-ups? Is that what you have, Roman?
No. No.
Come on, man. Those are cool.
I'm a little bit on the Asian side. I've got some candy cabs.
Oh, he's got an Asian fetish, folks. Watch out for this guy.
Oh, no.
And for the U.S. side, I'm a big Neo Geo fan. So
I do love the Neo Geo, SNK.
Yep.
How about you, Mike Murray?
At home?
Do you have any arcades at home?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah. I've got arcades coming out my ears.
Yeah, they're everywhere. When you're, in case you are ever wanting to have a location that has arcades in it, before you actually have the location, you have to collect the games. And if you don't have a place to put them, they're everywhere. Even if you have a place to put them, they're going to be everywhere.
So I have a warehouse in Watauga that's completely full. I have 2 storage units that are completely full, and a garage that's completely full. And now, much to my wife's, she's not happy about it. Now they're going inside the house.
Oh, yeah. That's the old where they start drawing the line on you a little bit. Like, okay, it can be in there, but it can't go in the living room. It's like, come on, hey, it's a cocktail table. It can be our end table in our bedroom.
Why not?
Oh, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
How about you, Roman?
So mine's supposed to be in one room. Unfortunately, it's kind of migrated to another one. But really, it's one room that I have. I've got about 3 or 4 in there right now. That's pretty much my limit, but it's theoretical limit.
Theoretical limit. These limits are meant to be broken and stretched, folks. I want to hear from the reverse gender here in the comments. I want to hear about the lady that's an arcade collector and the man is like, "Hey, honey, there's just way too many arcades in here."
Yeah.
I want to know about this couple because I know if I'm on this end of the spectrum, there's got to be someone on that
Absolutely.
end. So, speaking of spectrums, Mike, tell us where do you get these arcade machines from?
Well, after I had my test, that's such a great topic, and when I went into this, when I first met you, I had no idea.
He thought you just went to Arcades R Us and just picked them all up.
I had no idea the process that would be involved in building an arcade and collecting all these machines because they come in so many different varied forms. Like some of them are just ready to go on the floor. Some of them are like piles of crap that I couldn't even believe was going to be an arcade. Like what? Sure. You can restore that? Like it's even possible? And I've got a workshop and I build stuff all the time. And some of them that you picked out.
Amazing workshop and amazing stuff.
I was like, there's no way this is going to ever go on the floor. And sure enough, it looks brand new again when we're done. But and then, so I just kind of thought, oh, you just have to know people that have them or you just have to buy them off Facebook Marketplace. And then Mike introduced me to this thing called the auction. And
the arcade auction.
Yeah, so bought a bunch of arcades.
Roman, you've been to the arcade auction with me and Mike, haven't you?
I have. They're very unique. Everyone
is different. That's for sure.
There's some you got to be very patient when they say they start at 3, or 10. Maybe it's 2. Or
maybe
4.
It is 3. Absolutely.
Some of them are online. A lot of the ones in person, you get to check out what you're going to get. So yeah, there's a lot of versatility out there, but good things to look into.
So when we think of auctions, the general public, the first thing that's going to probably pop into their head is one of two things. One, eBay, because that's the auction site that we've all been, accustomed to knowing what is for quite a while now, since the earlier days of internet.
Yeah,
we've had eBay auction site, and that is a great place for finding parts. I'd say great. It is a place you can occasionally find maybe a circuit board, a printed circuit board, a PCB. But the auctions we're talking about, and the other way you would think of it as the guy was like, the guy is talking really fast like this, and I can't do it very well, but you understand what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. So I was talking to my father-in-law about this. He thought, because he's a farmer,
sure.
He thought it was just like the auctions at farms where you run the goats across the stage and everybody just bids on them. I'm like,
or cars, run cars across the stage. Yeah. So the difference in this, I'll paint the picture for you. So a typical, like a car auction, when they're on the line and you're bidding, like you're a used car director and you've got to buy cars for the shop, they're running them in front of you and you're kind of standing in one place, kind of throwing your hands up. It's the same thing if you're buying old artwork. At least I don't frequent old art auctions, but in the movies they sit out in the crowd in one place and they bring out a new piece of art and you bid on it with your little paddle. It's a little like that, except for you're on the move and these things are stationary. They build, they'll find a hollowed out old supermarket or whatever, an event center, maybe a skating rink. They'll find a place and they'll start piling these arcades up a lot like you would see them in an arcade. They're in big rows, and then the whole group is kind of shifting and moving with the auctioneer, and they're telling you how great the game is, and they're trying to sell you on buying it, and then obviously they're trying to bid it up because they get a percentage. And that's one of the drawbacks of an auction is if you sell in it, there's usually some sort of buyer's or a seller's fee that's 15%. And then if you purchase something, you're going to have to pay an auction fee of 15% and plus state sales tax as well. So, but it is a good place to buy things because it is kind of like all the arcades are in one place, and you can go and kind of pick which ones you want. And then if there's one that you may just kind of want, but it's going for a good price, you think, oh, well, that might be something I would add that I wouldn't normally add. So arcade auctions are definitely a thing, and right now, at least in the state of Texas, and again, it could be regional, but right now we're getting about 2 per season. So there'll be 2 in the winter, and then there's 2 auction companies, and there'll be 2 in the spring and the fall and
Yep.
summer and that sort of thing.
Yep. I think one of the best things about that is that you have an opportunity to see arcades that have come from different parts of the U.S. So you're not just
totally.
searching local inventory.
Oh yeah,
you're
yeah.
searching.
That's a good point.
The
The auctions come. I mean, the actual machines come from all over the country to
Right.
that location. Yeah, yeah. Good point.
Right, and some games, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, which is all the time, but some games do tend to be a little more regional. I mean, I would say stuff on the coast, if you're looking at games from the Asian market, like Candy Cabs and that sort of sit-down Japanese machine, that sort of thing, that's going to come in maybe in California, but not necessarily have made its way all the way to Texas. So if you got an auctioneer that's getting stuff out of California, you may get that, or maybe something that's more Chicago-based, because a lot of games were made in Chicago back in the day. Bally Midway was based out of there, and probably a lot more inventory was in that area than shipped down into the south.
I feel that way about Dynamo cabinets too, because Valley Dynamo is here.
We have Valley
Everywhere you
Dynamo
look,
right
there's a
here in
Dynamo
Richland
cabinet.
Hills, right? So you can get. I would imagine that up north of a Valley Dynamo cabinet might not be as frequent. And again, if you live up north and you see them all the time, let me know. And we're totally spitballing here, but based on what we see. So an auction is a great way. That's a great point. It's a great way to maybe get something that's out of your region. So
yeah, for sure. I would also say that at auctions, there's really good deals and there's really bad deals.
that's such a good point.
Right,
That's such a good point.
The other thing too is you're competing against other people. So if you're looking for, like myself, I'm going to use it for personal use. Now you're bidding against companies that want to use it, or for
you're bidding
have
against operators.
arcades.
Right. An operator may have been looking for that game a little longer than you have, or they may have a little deeper pocket than you have, let's be honest.
Exactly.
And some operators have deeper pockets than other operators, so you tend to be up against them sometimes, and you're just like, I'll let them have it. I'm just
out.
I'm out. I put my auction card. Sometimes I don't even get my auction card all the way out. Like I can't even unholster it before I'm like, I'll just put this away.
Yep.
I'm not down for this gunfight. Right? I don't have enough bullets in my gun to compete with this. So that's a great point. Where's other places you can get a game?
Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace.
Facebook Marketplace.
Or any of the Craigslist or any
yeah.
of those things. But mostly Facebook Marketplace, but yeah.
So I'll give you the only unique perspective I can give you on this is we took 3 years before we opened the Electric Starship Arcade, and in 2017 the market and the way you could get games changed, obviously, from the way it is in 2023. And what I saw early on, there was a website called Let Go and a website called OfferUp, and I believe OfferUp may have eaten Let Go at some point. There was Craigslist. Craigslist was a little bit of a rougher ride, right? Like the pictures might be weird, or hey, we're just putting these games out back, come get them, they're free. I mean, it was always a lot of kind of riffraffy working through. But I got games from Craigslist and Let Go and OfferUp. And OfferUp, I just bought a game this week from OfferUp. Yep. So
I would say there's lots of scam potential on
yeah, totally. And you're going, if you're hunting arcades, you're going to some rough areas sometimes, right? I mean, especially if you're looking for the deal, and if either your pocket's not deep just naturally and you are building that man cave, or if you're trying to build an arcade on a shoestring budget, you're going to end up in some rough areas. And sometimes
and even if you're not on a shoestring budget, they may have the very game you can't find anywhere.
Or it
that's
might
a great
just
point.
be for a part that you need that's in this
might be.
arcade that you're going to buy.
That's a yoke for a Star Wars machine. I gotta go. So that's a unique perspective. But I can say that over that time, from 2017 to now, with the rise of as many retro arcades that are leased, again, I don't have real facts behind this, but it feels like this area is probably one of the most saturated places in the U.S. as far as a retro arcade, but which is awesome for the people like us that like arcades. So we can go all over the place. But that saturation causes a vacuum in the market, right? So you're getting less and less option to purchase, and you're going for that rougher machine, which leads to you having to restore it a little bit. And over time, Facebook Marketplace has continued to be a really good source And I would imagine that would be the way it would be across the country. Is Facebook Marketplace would be maybe one of the better sources. There also is getting
and I've even bought, like, I've got one coming right now. I can't say what it is, but I've got one coming right now from Reno, Nevada,
Right.
that I bought off of Facebook Marketplace.
Sure.
So, it's because I'll never see that game ever again.
Yeah, me and Brinley were our tech. We were just restoring a game earlier, working on a restoration that we've been working on forever, and that game came on a train from California. And it's a rare game that I've never seen it for sale other than that one time on Facebook Marketplace. And that brings us to Facebook in general. If you join groups that are arcade groups, there's sales groups that you can join that are regional. And you can join them out of region too, so you can get those games shipped and transported.
Yeah, and I think that the other place that was kind of surprising to me that I didn't know when I first went into this until I met you start to learn this community, and now we have all these friends, and so
Right.
like we know this guy in Wichita Falls, and you just talked about Mike from the arcade. Hey, Mike. You just talked about Mike from the arcade in Wichita, Kansas.
Absolutely.
And so we know all these people now, and I usually think who might in my network have that game that might want to sell it and make phone calls. That's another way to find games.
What's Mike's YouTube handle? Do you remember?
It's Mike's Amateur Arcade Repair, and he's also got your M1K source or your MK
One source.
Something like that.
Both those channels are fantastic. I've learned a lot from
channel.
those channels. And Roman just went up and visited him.
I just visited him. Got a couple of monitors.
Bought some monitors for me, which was a surprise. And I was like, thanks, Roman.
He built the first, as far as I know, the first recent remake of the Tattoo Assassins.
Oh, no. And I bought all the artwork from
Yeah.
And we're going to build a Tattoo Assassins at some point. We need that weird, awesome game here at the Starship.
Yeah, I got to play that over at a Galloping Ghost.
I did.
Very
too.
unique.
It is unique, folks. If you haven't played, go play Tattoo Assassins on any, I don't know, emulation or whatever, MAME, I guess. It was a prototype game by Data East, and it hadn't come out. It never came out, but there were some prototype versions of it. But we're going to build one out of an MK cabinet and
Be awesome.
have it in the arcade. It'd be fun. So we're talking about Facebook groups. Are there any groups that you are a part of?
Well, if you own an arcade, we have to pimp our own group, which is
Pimping our group.
Arcade owners and operators. Got to
Roman, you want to be part of our group?
I do.
We'll get Roman in just because he does. He owns his home arcade. So Roman's got a unique perspective of where he's bought some games that we have something in common.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've seen is, looking around, to Mike's point, it's hard to find those Japanese games
Absolutely.
that you have over here in Texas. There's a lot of
You want to talk about some trust issues? About to get into some.
So, I see some coming from California, but shipping is just another thing too.
Right.
They don't want to do any shipping. They want you to pick it up, so it makes it difficult. So
Absolutely.
what I do is you look towards China and Japan, and you
Yeah.
start talking with some people that don't speak very much English.
Oh,
They don't have very much credentials, and you're taking that leap of faith that you're going to meet someone and they're going to ship you something, and hope
by
that
the
it
way,
makes it to your
there's a
house.
whole lot of scam potential.
A lot of
Yes.
scam potential, folks.
Sometimes you have to take a risk. And,
So, would you recommend it then? Like, it would be hard for me to say I recommend it. I can tell you someone I do recommend, that's a good contact for us, but would you recommend it?
I would say find something local first if you can.
Sure.
And by local, I mean in the U.S. And
Right.
if you're going to spend that extra money to have something shipped, if you're going to spend $1,500 to $2,000 to ship something, which prices are coming down now, but
Sure.
during the height of the pandemic, if you're going to spend that much, it might be worth just to rent a truck and go pick it up yourself if you're really going to do that.
Absolutely.
If you're looking for something that you just can't find, I would at least talk to someone who's ordered from someone and try to don't just pick up something random online. Talk to someone, talk to an operator, talk to us,
Right.
We'll,
And
shoot a comment and let us know,
And it's not just trust issues and things like that. You mentioned the language barrier, and we're not,
Right.
trying to say anything other than just a language barrier, right? But we've had experiences where you thought you were ordering a certain part and you got something else, and it's not because somebody's trying to scam you.
Sure.
It's just a miscommunication. right?
Absolutely.
You get a gun that's the small one. You thought you were getting the big one, or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, you just have to be careful with those.
Absolutely. Have you had any? Have you gotten a game that you've paid for, and you thought you were getting a little something else, and then it turned out to be a crap shack? Like
Well,
just
so I don't want to say
Just
it
for
turned out
less
to
of
be
a term.
bad, but I did, when you get something and they say it's refurbished or it's going to be completely refurbished and you get it and you look at it and you're like, wow, this
there's leaves inside of it.
is not what I thought.
I haven't heard this story.
So
Whatever it
you
is.
get it. They show you a picture online. It's the most beautiful thing ever.
Oh my God.
And the next thing you know, they must have like tied it behind the boat when they were shipping it over here.
Totally.
They just dragged it over here.
It's a boat anchor. It's waterlogged.
I did hear you got one with like a forklift.
Yep, that's the other
The whole
part is that
thing.
when it's going into a container and you're shipping in a mixed container, you're going to have stuff in there that's mixed with everyone else. So it's not going to come straight to your house and it's all yours. So now you're going to have it handled multiple times. You're going to have it transferred from one trucking company to another one, then it's going to finally get delivered to your house. And unfortunately for me, I had one that was forklift through the bottom of a
Oh,
That
so
hurts.
yeah, when that happened,
Blast City?
It's a Blast City. Straight
Sega
through it.
Blast City is a sit-down candy cab, which is just a Japanese term for their sit-down games. And you had a forklift right through it.
Do you have a picture of that?
I do. I'll have to get you a
Send it
picture.
to me.
of that.
I'll put it.
Yeah,
I'll overlay it so
everybody
people
see
can
that.
see.
He's done something really neat with it, though.
Yeah, so
refurbished.
you get lemon, you make lemonades, right?
That's
so
right. You
it
made
took me a
really
while.
pretty blueberry lemonade out of it.
So I'm a big Capcom fanboy here, so I decided to go ahead and make a Capcom mini cabinet. So it's I call it my baby blue instead of a big blue.
Ah, that's awesome.
So yeah, I got it painted, did some work to it. Had some issues, so many issues with the monitors. You don't know how things are going to come over, and it's hard to find those parts for those arcades here. And there's not a lot of people that want to work on.
Yeah, because even
Japanese stuff.
like the arcade, like there's arcadepartsandrepair.com that sells all these different like components and stuff. They don't sell any of the stuff. Or
They don't even sell the connectors if you want to make your own. So you have to start ordering those, getting those online, and trying to figure out how you're going to, how you're going to fix those. Right now, currently, I'm going through how do I make a Wells Gardner into a candy cab. So
I
made
love the experimentation.
Yeah, I've got some harnesses that I've made, just a lot of connectors, converting it from one to the next, and just trying to set it up. So
He was sending me pictures last night. He had made these extension cables are running across the room, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I miss that, folks. I miss when I didn't have to get ready for the next wave of customers to come in on whatever day we open, and I could have stuff strewn out all over the place, which is right now, actually. The arcade is always destroyed on a Monday and a Tuesday. So
I will say one thing. If you're going to get something from overseas and you're in uncharted territory, even if you're getting something from the U.S., brush up on your reading schematic skills, unless you have the money to start paying people to repair all the time. But tracing one wire that goes through 50 different loops and connectors.
yeah, harnesses can be tough, folks.
Yeah, it's definitely worthwhile to understand what you're reading and get a really good multimeter. That's my advice to anybody.
I would say getting a good multimeter
Yes,
is my good advice to anybody who wants to work on it.
I want to say thank you to Mike Murray. He gave me a good multimeter for Christmas one year, and I love it. Actually, it's a fluke. It's a great multimeter. Folks, if you don't know what a multimeter is, this is how you're going to test continuity and ohms and voltage on your arcade machine, which voltage is a huge problem usually on any, just a lot of wire to go through, and converting power from the wall in a switching power supply or even a linear power supply. You need that voltage meter. So if you're getting into arcades, buy one of those first. I would say have that handy, a multimeter.
Don't skimp on it.
Don't skimp on it.
Don't skimp on it like Mike Woods would. That's stupid. Don't go to should I say Harbor Freight? Don't Harbor Freight your multimeter.
You don't have to get a
folks.
fluke. There's a EEV blog or whatever. They sell a really great one that's like it's like half the price of a fluke.
Right.
But get a good one. Don't.
That's good.
I recommend a backlit one if you get one.
Oh.
So you can see it.
Because you're going to be in a
Yeah,
dark
you're gonna be in a
arcade.
dark arcade.
Be dark.
So
I like that. I like that. Mike, have you got an arcade that you thought, I think you got one recently, actually. I know that story here.
probably
That you
2 or
thought,
3.
man, I'm getting a good deal. And then all of a sudden you're like, holy smokes, I'm in a hellhole here.
Oh, well, I know which one you're thinking of, I think.
Well, give me a better story if it's not the one I'm thinking of.
We'll use that one because it is a good learning lesson. I'm just gonna tell you what it is. I bought a Terminator Salvation, the big deluxe one with the 42-inch screen and the big giant Terminator topper.
Yeah, it's a Raw Thrills
Raw
is
Thrills
the
game.
manufacturer of that one.
Yeah, and I bought it at auction, and I want to say this before I say any of that. It is buyer beware, and it is buyer's responsibility to check the machine thoroughly before you buy it and know what you're getting into.
This is how you learn lessons.
Exactly.
Yes. So I learned a new lesson on this one. I got it home and realized it had some very much purposefully hidden damage and miswiring, and I mean, there was literally like there were some wires that were literally tied together and then taped with masking tape, kind of stuff. That was, but then they had shoved it underneath where you couldn't see it when you were looking at it at the auction. Several things like that. The back of it was been cracked, and
I believe Mike's quote was, "Mike, this has been dropped off a truck."
It was dropped off a truck. I mean, so, and they had put another board up underneath it, screwed it in, and they painted it black. So that you were just looking underneath.
Oh, wow.
Sneaky.
Yeah, it was really sneaky.
Don't be sneaky at the auction.
Shame on the seller, but shame on me for not doing more research. So I had to wind up putting about another $800 into that game, fixing it, and I mean, it looks brand new again.
It does. Luckily, Mike is a heck of a restoration artist. And there goes the trick, right? Because everybody wants a good deal, but sometimes when you pay for that good deal, it comes with all these issues, and all of a sudden that time is money. Money is money if you're having to buy parts and stuff like guns and things like that to get a game like that going. And obviously, the newer the game, probably the more expensive the part. In some cases, obviously, some old games have old PCBs that are very expensive. But you get a Terminator gun, or you're starting to buy little camera boards or whatever they're called, little sensors for the gun or the camera on the gun to read. So that's expensive.
And we've heard so many stories from the auction where people will say, "Oh, I didn't look in to see if it had the original board," and they get home and find out it has a 60 in one. And,
that's rough.
It's really important to at least do some inspection before.
Bring a good flashlight with you.
Yeah.
I always would bring at least a handheld screwdriver just so I could maybe get because usually the backs don't have a lock on them, or if they usually have one screw holding the wood. And auction games are not necessarily the nicest games. That's why they're at the auction. And a lot of times it's people couldn't get them working, and the auctioneer's job is like to just get them enough working to where they're going to sell for the most amount of money because they're getting paid on that percentage.
Yep,
so
exactly.
There's nothing wrong with that, but if you don't do your due diligence, you could be stuck with a lemon. And have to make lemonade.
Exactly. But in all fairness as well, I think that if you're buying anything from the auction or even ordering anything overseas, the expectation should be that you're going to have to do some work on it.
I think that's
exactly what I would say.
That is why I set yourself up for disappointment.
Exactly.
Right? That's a really smart way to go about it.
Now on the flip side, I mean, I've gotten some really smoking deals. I bought at 3 auctions ago. I bought a Rev X. The guns didn't work, and the monitor was kind of wonky, and it literally took I bet you within 10 or 15 minutes of work, I had it working like brand new again. It was just because somebody didn't know what they were doing. Right. So you can get some really screaming deals too.
What Mike's talking about is Midway's Aerosmith Revolution X. It's a rail shooting gun game that's similar to Midway's Terminator 2 from that time period. And that game, it's so funny. I looked for that game for 3 years. And I paid double what Mike paid, just like maybe 2 auctions before that. And now I've seen 3 or 4 of them. That's the way inevitably it'll go, guys. You'll look for a game forever and ever and ever, and you'll finally just say whatever and pay extra for it, and then you're going to find 10 of them for half as much. So that's the way normally, that's my luck anyway.
I would say also if you're new to this, that maybe go to an auction and just watch and write the prices down, because
that's a great plan.
You can go to 2 or 3 of them and you can kind of learn what things are going to sell for and what conditions bring what money and things like that. And
you actually segued into what I was going to talk about is how do you know what to pay for these things, right? So the way I learned and the way I try to help that is I would watch recorded auction videos on YouTube, and then when
Hey, we know somebody that does that.
Yeah, me. I think people really like that. I think there's a little bit of excitement to an auction that will cause you to pay a little more, by the way, as you're getting into that exciting, I want to win it. You feel like you're winning, but you're
really losing.
Really losing money is what you're doing. But I would watch an auction video and I would write down and learn, basically what the formula was for, how much these things cost. And there's tons of auctions that go on. There's that Captain's auction up north that's, and you'll see some astronomical prices for some games, but that'll give you at least an idea of, and if you're looking at those prices on a Facebook marketplace and you see what it's not selling for, and then you see them lower it to a certain price and it sells instantly, that's kind of how I started building my own mental price guide. There's a great site called Exity's Price Guide. If y'all haven't, you can look that up. That's EX. IDYS, and John Xdab. I can't remember. I'm so sorry, folks. I'm terribly ill prepared for this. But there are some price guides on the internet, and they're guides. That's something important to remember on that, because condition drives price, right?
It does, absolutely.
You know, one thing to keep in mind too is when you're looking at arcades, there could be multiple versions of the same game.
Oh, that's
so
true.
You need to know what you're looking for and what you want. It may be in a different kind of cab. It may have different art. It may have repro art, or it may have original art. So there's a lot of things that you need to look at. So
yeah, there may be a not so rare version of the game you want that costs less, right?
Right.
You know, and in my opinion, you know, once you've done your research and looked up pricing and you know what you want, have a mindset on what you're going to spend and stick to it. Because if not, you could always spend a lot more than what you want to.
Yeah. Because if you're at an auction, especially at an auction, and there's somebody there that wants that game more than you, they're going to pay more,
Right?
no matter what. You know, so you're fighting with that at an auction that you might not be fighting with on a Facebook Marketplace.
Correct.
You know, there's perceived value of an item, right? Like, so we see a game that we like, and let's say Mike looks at it, that game, and he says, okay, that's an $800 game. And I look at it like, well, Mike's, you know, what people might not know is Mike has the ability to restore that game because there's all kinds of arcade parts, and he's like really good at working, you know, woodworking and that sort of thing. So he can fix these Bondo things right up. Whereas I might pay another couple $100 for that, and he doesn't perceive that as a good deal anymore. But I'm just trying to get it home, and I don't mind a little patina on it. You know what I mean? Or like, I don't really care about changing out the overlay. I just want the dang game. So, you know, there's different ways to look at it, you know, and what might be a deal.
I think the big thing you missed is I have a vinyl printer, and I can print artwork.
Just print artwork.
For like, it might cost you $300 or $400
right.
to get that off the internet, but I can print it for like $20.
Yeah. Your vinyl printer's well paid for by now. So now it's just shooting free money out, right? So to print out that vinyl artwork.
Yeah, and then as you get into newer games too, and by newer, you know, 90s.
But, newer than the 80s.
Yeah, you get into like CPS2, and this is a whole other topic we'd probably
come on, I love it. Let's segue.
If you're looking for a Street Fighter 2 cab and you find a X-Men versus Street Fighter, you may actually want to buy that because you can convert that over because it is the right cab. It has the right artwork or the right pieces on it that you could just change the marquees on. So when you're collecting those things, there's other things you could look at than just that one specific machine.
Oh, you're right. You know, like Mike and I went through this because I looked for, and then now it's the same story. We've seen 100 of them since, but I could not find a RoboCop. We're like, well, you could buy something like a Bad Dudes or something and convert it to RoboCop. You know, right?
And this brings up another subject altogether, and this is simply time and education. Is where you want to get, and this segues into my next one. It's like, well, how do you know you're getting a good deal? What's a good deal? So a lot of times in the 80s, a game would come out, and it would be as popular as it was going to be, right? And maybe it was a Pac-Man because they made a bunch of them, right? And then at some point, the money that game was earning slowed down considerably. And so now you're kind of stuck with an arcade cabinet, and it's not making that however many $1,000s a week. It's making a couple $100, or maybe in the under $100.
$5.
So instead of buying a whole new game, arcade manufacturers came up. One of the early ones was Crystal Castles.
Crystal Castles.
I'm sorry, a conversion for Crystal Castles, which is Agent X or Cloak and Dagger. So this is an early, and it was a kit. So Atari sends out a kit for Cloak and Dagger, right? And you're not getting a whole arcade machine. You're getting a board and maybe some stickers. You know, you put the decals on the side, you get your overlay. Maybe you change out the marquee, or maybe you're a cheaper operator. You just paint the thing black. You know, here comes Pac-Man's black now. But they would send out specific kits to actually take over other games too. So you take a Williams Defender or a Williams Stargate off the floor and turn it into an Atari game, and you didn't have to manufacture the cabinet. So kits started coming out. Roston is a famous Tato kit, and every operator must have been cheap because Roston has been converted to everything. Like I've seen a Roston Tempest, a Roston, Joust is very common. A lot of the Williams games got converted. So what I'm getting at though is, once you get an idea of the shape of a cabinet, and we did this, if you look up on the Starship's YouTube channel, I did a Cubert for Time Rift, and it had been turned into Tiger Heli. And someone had painted a whole face on the side of that thing. But I saw
graffitied it on.
Graffitied it on. So it's this big silver graffiti. And there's no way that the I mean, maybe an arcade, somewhat of aficionado or something might know, but there's no way you would look at that and go, that was a Cubert.
Okay. I have to take a little tangent on this.
Okay. Go ahead.
It's such a great story. So I had this list of games I wanted.
Absolutely. What you need to start if you're trying to open an arcade. Make a list first. That's
must-have games, right? And Cubert was on there. And so Mike sent me this thing. It was a picture of this tiger heli thing, and it literally was like painted gray, and then somebody had graffitied with spray paint on the side of it.
Look up the YouTube. We got a whole video on it.
Find it. It's amazing. So, and it was $125. $125.
And I was like, you got to go get it.
And I'm like, I don't want a tiger heli. Why should I go get this?
It's not a tiger heli. It's a Cubert. Go get it.
That's what he told me. And so I'm like, okay, fine. I went and got it. And then when I got there, I was even more disappointed because it was in such horrible shape. I mean, good bones, right? But horrible shape. So we brought it back to the shop, put it in the shop. It sat there for, I don't know.
Mike was like, when are you going to start that Cubert? When are you going to get on that Cubert?
It sat there for several months, and then Mike started restoring it. And every day I'd go out there and look at it, make a little bit more progress. And it went from a $125 game to what we saw sell at auction for $4,000.
$4,000 is what a Cubert sells
here
for
recently.
at auction.
And so, yeah, absolutely, it's worth it.
Right. So that's a thing you can study, especially again Williams games. There's some rare Williams games, and almost every Williams game is desirable, from Sinistar and Joust and Robotron 2084 to even like a little bit more rare stuff like Bubbles, and you can get really rare if you keep going into Blaster and Inferno and things like that. But these games are desirable, especially some of the early ones, like the Jousts and that. I mean, you just kind of need those in your Defender, and those games got converted a lot. And if you can recognize the shape of the cabinet, you can make yourself a Robotron again.
To the point is, I didn't recognize the shape of the cabinet at that time. I would now.
Right, yeah. And now
that was 2 years ago or something.
Right.
But yeah, Mike recognized it immediately, and he said, that's a screaming deal. Go get it,
Yeah, it's a Gottlieb cabinet, and you can turn that into Mad Planets or Cubert real quick. I mean, Mad Planet's a little tough.
And
Control
that goes
panel's
back to
tough.
the original. You can get great deals if you decide you want to put the work into it.
Right.
You have to do some of the
That's how you know you got a good deal, but you got to be able to sit around and restore that and find parts. I mean, sometimes that, finding the proper joystick for Cubert is tough. And that they just started remaking them. And in that video, I thought I had the right joystick, and sure enough, it was like an Australian joystick with. It just wasn't the right one.
Very close.
It was close, but it wasn't. It wasn't that close at the end. When I was looking at it, I was like, gosh, I was really wrong. but I thought I was even has the original joystick, but it did not. But we put a new modern remake of that. And that kind of brings us to something Mike, does at the Geek Pub is he has parts for either total new builds or restoration, especially like T-molding. Nothing like T-molding to refresh a game.
It's amazing what just taking a cabinet that's in kind of poor shape, putting brand new T-molding on it.
Oh yeah,
it's like night and day. Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is where we get into a fun topic of Restomod or restoration, right?
Or
custom build. And then you start getting into, do I put the original board set, or do I put a board set where I can play 60 games on my one arcade cabinet at the house? Or do I put on a different color T-molding that just maybe they didn't put red T-molding on track and field, but I think it looks really good on track and field? Or do I put an LCD screen, or do I put a CRT in there that you drive to another state to get?
Can you even find that CRT?
Can you even find it?
Find it, yes.
And that's a tough one right there, is just being able to find the parts to repair these games. But never give up hope,
I don't think any of those are wrong answers. By
right,
the way.
I don't
totally
either.
Depends on what the use is and what you're going to do with it.
Absolutely. Don't let anyone tell you how to spend your money, folks.
And especially if you love the arcades, technology is changing, and some of it you just can't find.
Absolutely.
Once a board dies, you got to try to find it again or find other.
Well, and let me give you an example of something for me that I think is really important. Like, I try to keep all the original components to a cabinet. Every cabinet I buy, or of any kind, I try to keep the original components. Either I keep them on a shelf, or I just leave them in the bottom of the cabinet.
Right.
But an example for me is a switching power supply. I almost always put a switching power supply in. And it's not because the game won't run just fine on the original power supply that was, didn't keep its voltage. to be blunt.
An important thing to remember is when these were built, they were built for 6 months.
Yeah,
Like the fact that we're running these 30 years later,
or
is,
50 in some cases.
50. You know, the fact that these games are still going is an absolute miracle, and I applaud the dedication of any arcade that runs retro games like that.
So by putting something like a switching power supply in place of the original power supply, I can guarantee that game's probably not going to have any problems where the linear power supply that was in it might burn something out and cause additional damage. Right?
It could cause a fire. Safeties have changed a lot since some of those have come out.
Absolutely. So yeah. You kind of got to think about some of those things when you're going through that,
especially if you're an operator, because you're running these games. You're basically taking an old man that has retired from the NBA, and he's been retired for 30 years, and you're not just putting him in for a shot or to shoot free throws because he's still good at it. You're going in the game and you're playing the whole time, the whole 12-hour shift,
exactly like you did when you were a rookie.
Yeah, you got to play, and you can't make a mistake because we need all these games up.
You know, that is such a fantastic point, because when you have a home arcade cabinet, you're going to turn it on for an hour here,
absolutely,
an hour there. You're not going to run it 12 hours a day, right? That makes a difference. This
brings me to pinball. No, just kidding. I feel like the modern pinball machine is made for the collector, and you're right. It's by the time it breaks, you know, the backstop on a behind the solenoid, you know, on a flipper mech goes out. And that thing's going out in the first month in an arcade, you know, but I have one from the 90s and it's got rust on it and hadn't gone out yet. Right. You know what I mean? So there's a I'm telling you, factory zip ties.
You almost make it sound like a screw can back out and cause the machine to stop working.
Oh my God. So I had Roman come up one night. I was like, hey, Roman, I got a machine that's just acting up and I can't get it to stop like resetting constantly. I need to take it off the floor. You want to come up one night? We're going to close at midnight, and I need to tear down a pinball machine, which means taking the legs off, folding the head, and putting it upright, and then break another one out and reverse that same thing. So you're looking at, you know, if you're fast, I'm sure you can get it done in under an hour, but still, it's, you know, you're getting it up, and then you got to make sure it's clean, the rubbers are right, and all that good stuff, and the flippers are right. And anyway, so we're planning on pulling not an all-nighter, but definitely into that 1:30, 2 o'clock range off of midnight. And my buddy Kevin Moore at Pinball ERS, if you're in the local area, DFW area, him and Jess do great. Kevin and Jess, they do great work on as far as helping pinball machines come back from all kinds of horrible, things. And he sent me a text and goes, "Hey, I'm looking at this forum and it looks like just maybe a screw backed out and it's touching a metal rail and it's grounding it out." And I went, and he sent me a picture, and I was like, "Well, I'm looking at the underside of a pinball machine, which if you've ever not seen one, it's quite nuts. Scary."
I'll put one on the screen here.
Yeah, it's a bit overwhelming if it's especially the first time you've seen one. And I'm looking at his picture. I'm like, now where in the world? There's 37,000 screws staring at me. Which one is backed out? And sure enough, and all I did was screw it back in, and the machine was fine, and we fixed it in 5 minutes. I'm like, well, you want to play some video game? Let's go to Third Strike, Roman. Let's go play.
Let's do
it. So anyway, so yeah, there's but pinball, I don't know how I got on that subject, but other than these games they feel like if they're built modern day, they're built for home use, and but the games that we're putting back in were like supposed to last 6 months.
Yeah.
So and the fact that we're still running them,
you might
pride point.
Dive onto that a little bit deeper, the 6 month thing, because I don't know how many people really know that.
So, when you got to think of an arcade's lifespan, just an arcade machine, I should say. They're going to be popular if they're good, and people are going for high scores and that sort of thing. But I don't think manufacturer warranties were for very long, right?
Yeah, they were like 90 days.
Right, yeah. So all they got to do is stand upright and turn on for about 6 months, and they're clear, And usually, back then, when a new arcade machine came out, you weren't competing with iPads and Netflix and things like that. I mean, entertainment was different back then. You might have been competing with people that didn't have cable, or cable wasn't around quite yet. They might have had like 4 stations to look at on TV, and they had an Atari 2600 at home, and Donkey Kong was just a brown glob, and in person on a Nintendo cabinet, he looked like an ape, throwing a barrel. So that game just needed to last a little long, and they're going to make all that money in 6 months. They're not going to feel bad when it breaks down in 6 months. They made plenty of money off of it. So they just weren't designed for what we're making them do, at least in my opinion. So, and I'm darn proud of them, though, especially all the ones that don't give me any trouble.
Not only that, you got to keep in mind new games are coming out, so they're going to have to move stuff out to make room for new games.
Absolutely.
So if something was on its last leg, they didn't even think twice about just pushing
God.
it.
Well,
Push these things in the garbage.
I was just about to say, how many cabinets went in dumpsters?
Yep.
You just toss it in and
I doubt anyone ever thought that the tube TV would ever go out of style.
Oh, I know. I mean, modern day, serious business, when people clean out their house, I can still find tube TVs on the side of the curb.
Yep.
And I scoop them up and put them in my truck like a hoarder, like a X-ray hoarder. I just put it in my truck. So, that's a thing that people just didn't think about. I just don't think anybody did. And there used to be TV repairmen. There's not TV repairmen now. The flat screen breaks? That sure goes in the dump.
There is. So
What? Really?
Yes, right here on just one street up.
I'm wrong again.
Yeah, it's the cell phone repair place.
Okay.
Just down the street, they actually have a sign in the window. Because I only know because I pulled into the pizza place and was staring at their sign, but it says we repair TVs.
Well, there is actually one in Hearst as well. But
I'm really wrong.
I've actually called a few of these. If you look them up, you can find some.
Okay.
I said, hey, do you still work on CRT? Oh, no, we haven't done that in like 20
I
years.
just feel like most people don't even, I don't think of that. I think if your TV breaks, just go buy a new TV.
Right.
That's
Usually
what
they're
I would
coming-
do.
right.
I mean, I probably wouldn't now that I know how to repair arcade monitors because it's been
Great
yeah.
video, by the way. I watched
Oh,
that.
yeah. You just
Very,
put out a
very
video,
awesome.
Mike. Tell them about your video.
Yeah, so we just put out a video here a couple days ago on the Time Rift channel, and it's me and my brother, the 8-bit guy, and we replaced the backlight on what would be a trash monitor. Now looks brand new again.
Oh, it does. It looks
And it's
fantastic.
a $50 repair.
I'll be honest, when I saw that, I never knew that's what the inside of a TV looked like, an LCD TV. And it was
LED, a strip of LEDs running across.
not to take anything from me from fixing that, but it looked very simple.
It is. It's the thing about repairing those monitors is, and my brother called it, I think in the video he called it like peeling back an onion.
Yes.
It is layer after layer after layer after things you have to take off. And I didn't show but about a tenth of it on the video because it's just, people would get bored and tune out, right?
Right.
But it takes about an hour to take that monitor completely apart, change the backlight, and put it all back together. I've done it like 5 times. Now,
And so the difference in a commercial television, though, when people say, I'll just buy a new TV, and they usually would toss it because the amount that someone would charge to fix that would be probably less than they can get a Black Friday flat screen. So, but the difference in that arcade monitor without that frame and everything that comes with, and a stand and everything comes on a commercial TV.
it's made to mount inside the
Yeah,
cabinet.
those are expensive, and they're not like just cheap around the corner. You can run buy one at Best Buy. Now, if you're building your own arcade, you can
And
do
they
stuff like
have
that.
some additional components like fans,
Sure.
a beefier power supply,
Absolutely.
and stuff to make them because they again run 12 hours a day.
Absolutely.
And a lot of proprietary connections on it, too, that you just can't have without getting the original one.
Yep. Oh, that's a good point. I mean, some of the monitors run off of like a what do you call it? I can't believe I'm just losing my mind here. The little yellow connector that's RCA composite. A lot of the games run off composite. Like a modern TV doesn't. You can't even buy that I know of a modern LCD TV.
I haven't seen one
with
in
a
so
composite connector on the back of it. Yeah.
Speaking of monitors, if we're talking about arcades, and we'll get back into the more retro arcades, what do you think about, and I think this is just, to me, it boils down to ownership and what you want to deal with and what you're running at your house, or what do you think about putting an LCD monitor in a retro game, and what do you think about, or do you keep it CRT? Are you a stickler for it? Do you think, some games look better? What's your opinion, Roman?
So monitors are a very touchy subject for everyone.
Oh my gosh, it's in the comments here. We're going to spark some comments based on your answers here.
So here's the way I see it. I think that if you're playing old games, you should be playing them on a CRT. That's personal.
All right,
opinion.
Roman's put his flag in the sand here. Put his foot down.
Yes, but I'll explain a little bit more. So knowing how games were made, they were made to use scan lines,
Right.
and the scan line gives the actual graphics shape. Because it's taken part of that in the design part of it.
True.
So when you want to play a game and you want it to look like it did, you want to play it on a CRT.
Well, Roman, what about filters? You can do scanline filters.
Well, then you have to put all these things in play. Now we're talking about, it's a little bit, like I said, it's very controversial here.
I love it.
But what I would say is that if you have the ability to put a CRT, put a CRT. But what I'm also saying is that if you can't find one, I'm not going to tell you don't play your game.
Don't let anybody tell you how to spend your own money.
I like that.
Why would you say, hey, Roman said we should do it on a CRT, so we can't play it because all we have is an LCD?
Well,
And look, I mean, some people that aren't, or especially if you're just first getting into this, working on a CRT is a pain.
It's scary.
It's scary. It's dangerous.
It's deadly. Seriously,
Could
literally.
be deadly.
my middle name is getting shocked by an CRT. No,
So
danger.
if you've got a home arcade and you want to put an LCD in it,
Yeah,
I think more power to you. It's fine, but I do agree. I prefer this.
Yeah, so there's so many things to go into. Like if you're gonna play every once in a while and you're just playing it, I don't want to say for fun because everyone plays for fun, but if you're just piddling around with it or you're gonna get it for your kids to play and you put an LCD, there's not gonna be any issue. I'm not gonna call you out for having an LCD on
Roman
it.
will call you out.
So I'm going to tell you a story about this. So I have I got the lovely people at Twin Galaxies, Jace Hall, donated a couple of 3 arcades for for this Time Rift.
Thank you, Twin Galaxies.
Thank you, Twin Galaxies. And one of the games I got was a 60-in-1 machine. It was like a Pac-Man cabinet or Galaga cabinet. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think they had a multicade.
It was a multicade,
there.
right? And it has an LCD in it. And I took the games that were in it out and I put a Mr. Do in it. And so it's now a Mr. Do cabinet. And it's still running the LCD screen.
Right.
And I have it set up and operational at my warehouse right now. And I have had, I bet you I've had 30 or 40 people that have come through because I kind of try to make it a thing. Play this game. Is there anything that you notice about it that's
He's testing the
that you
target.
don't like? And I've only had like 2 people say, well, I wish it had a CRT.
Right.
Everybody else is like, what are you talking about?
They don't even know.
They don't even know.
Don't even know.
So
Another part of that CRT debate is what are you putting it on? Because if you're putting it on a Pac-Man or anything from the 80s, it's not going to affect me.
Okay, look here.
But if you're putting it onto a Capcom CPS2 game or a CPS1, there's lag on these. Now, there's a lot of technology out there that's reducing this lag, and it's getting better and it's getting better.
That's a great point. By the way.
But, if you're used to playing on a CRT and you're playing Street Fighter and you're trying to do your moves and then you move on to an LCD, you're going to miss a lot because you're going to feel that the timing is just off.
Okay.
I want to be clear. I totally agree with you, and I wasn't trying to say that
No.
everybody should just put LCDs in. That's not what I mean. I always think you should put a CRT in if you can.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
I'm just saying if you don't, it's fine.
Yeah. If you don't, it's fine. It's definitely okay. There's the other very, very, very bad thing is that they don't make LCDs in the size that you need. 4x3 LCDs are far and few in between now. There's a couple of companies out there,
Unico,
Phoenix,
yeah.
That has their monitor, but the largest is a 26. So if you're running something on a 27, or if you're running anything from Japan that's on a 29, which is technically a 27 here, it's not going to fit exactly.
Yep.
And they're still relatively new, and there's some bugs with it, but it's to each their own. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing is that have fun with whatever you do. That's
Absolutely. If you're having fun,
I
really,
love
is
that.
all that matters?
I absolutely love
Absolutely.
that. Definitely have fun with what you do. So, Roman, is it okay to? What if it has a CRT and it's working? Matter of fact, what if your whole arcade does, and you decide that you just don't want to deal with those future problems? Do you wipe out those CRTs and replace them all with LCDs?
I don't think it's worth your time to wipe them out because.
Oh, I don't know, man. I've fixed a lot of CRTs.
I feel the same way about. I've heard people talk about emulation and stuff. It would be harder to emulate everything than it would just be to run the original boards. Or the same thing with the monitor. It's just it would be too much trouble to rip them off.
It'd be too much trouble to gut every machine and put emulation and CRTs in them,
I'm more worried about
LCDs in them.
how many bezels are you gonna have to custom make just to fit that? I'm not even worried about hooking the
layering
monitor up.
problems on top of problems.
Well, make that.
Let
make
me
the
weigh
wiring.
in. Let me weigh in. Yeah, every arcade owner, if we're getting to ownership, and I would imagine this would transfer to home ownership too, and Roman obviously backing this up because of his home arcades and him driving to Iowa. Is that where you just went?
no,
Kansas, same day, whatever, up there somewhere above Texas. To pick up a CRT, I absolutely can't stand it to be LCD. I cannot and it bothers me on Pac-Man. It bothers me on Street Fighter. It bothers me on everything. And where you say into the lag, that's one of your reasonings. Mine is I like a CRT for a couple of other reasons. One, I do like that bright X-ray, right?
Yep.
Like I like that line, that scan line drawing.
Especially on a vector.
Right. Oh God. If it put an LCD and a vector, I can't even. I mean, I love you. I'll live with you, but we're not gonna watch the same TV shows in the same room or anything. So you definitely can't get anything out of if you're trying to emulate a vector monitor with an LCD, that's just not going to work at all. But you can run an LCD in an arcade machine. Me personally, a lot of like the bend and flex of like just you'll play Super Mario Brothers on something with an LCD and it's blocky. It just looks blocky, and you can obviously
it's the scan lines that are
you can add like filters and everything, and that helps.
There is a device. I'll link it in the description. There's a device called a RetroTink.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, RetroTink. Yeah.
The thing is, this comes back to, is it worth it? It's like $400.
Right.
So wouldn't I just go find another?
Yeah.
That's go find that curbside CRT and build it out, man.
Yeah, it's cheaper to go the original route, but it's harder to find.
Right. And that's the bend here, right? That's the flex. So it's just how much trouble you want to go through for whatever your level of authenticity, what it means to you. And again, I don't think you're wrong for putting in an LCD. I just think I'm wrong for putting one in. So I do. I think it really depends on the owner. And to Mike Murray's point, the average consumer, the 99%. And obviously we're just trying to hit the majority here, folks. The 1% or even less, I would imagine, that would even say something. Man, they're usually not really frequenting your arcade that much anyway. And the million little kids that come in, and their moms and their dads, and they're just happy to see these games. Yep. They just want to play them. Yep. So that's a point toward emulation, for that matter. That's a point toward an LCD screen. And these kids just want to play these games, and these adults just want to play these games. And I'm way closer to a purist than not, but I certainly couldn't crap on a wonderful arcade that was full of LCDs, because they're going through enough trouble just keeping these 40-year-old games going.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's about. I mean, in our last podcast, and if you haven't listened to it, you might go back and do that first. But and we talked about what kind of arcade.
A little late now.
Yeah, what kind of arcade are you trying to build? Right.
Right.
Like if you're just building an arcade bar where people are going to come drink and the games are just there for decoration, who cares?
Right. I agree. I agree. I do like from this standpoint, I'm obviously going to be a little more biased toward the electric Starship. I love all the original stuff, and I love learning about it. I love just being entrenched in it. And I learn something new every day. I cannot tell you the last time I went more than a week and a half without learning of a new game I'd never heard of.
Yeah, I'm the same way all the time.
And I will say that's part of the reason I come over here to this arcade was because everything is original. It reminds me of when I was younger. I want to see that. I want to see those CRTs. I want to see that. But again, it wouldn't change.
Told you I built this place for Roman. I told you. I told you.
But to Mike's point, I'm the guy that just drove 10 hours to get a monitor. So obviously, CRTs are important.
He brought me a couple CRTs back. So and they'll go into some good projects there.
And then I just want to make one other statement. I think for the home person who they buy a Pac-Man, for example, and let's hope they put a CRT in it, but they buy a Pac-Man at home and they want to put a 60-in-1 in it so they can play Pac-Man and Galaga and Donkey Kong and all these things on one cabinet. I don't have a problem with that either.
God bless them.
Because that's a perfect thing to do in a home environment.
Yeah, they're not going to have the space to put 40 arcades in their in their house.
Here at the Starship, or as an operator, I would think you'd want to put the original boards
definitely.
to individual cabinets. But yeah.
So we made a joke, and it might have been on the last podcast because these things kind of run together for me. But we made a joke, and I said, "Oh, we got Arcade 1-Up, right?" I think the arcade community kind of dumps on Arcade 1-Up a little bit, don't you think? Do you agree?
They do. I think they do. But I think they're.
And do you think they're crap, Roman?
No, I don't.
Do you think they're crap?
Absolutely not.
So I don't either.
I don't want them in my arcade.
Right. But they're not for commercial use, folks.
If I saw them in your game room, I'd think it was awesome.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We get real nostalgic for those little tabletop Coleco arcade shaped little with little calculator LCD screens in them. And we think that's the most amazing thing ever. But if Arcade 1-Up would have came out in 1984, 85, we'd be ridiculously nostalgic for them.
Absolutely.
And they all have flat screens, and they're all running emulation. So my point is if you are enjoying arcade games, however you're doing it, God bless you. Because you're doing something that I love and that Roman loves, that Mike Murray loves.
And I can't remember which city I was in. I travel for work. So I was in one city, and I actually saw an entire arcade of Arcade 1-Up.
I actually saw a news report from like somewhere out of Louisiana that they had done Arcade 1-Ups in a commercial setting. I don't know what I don't know anything about legalities of that. I don't know anything about anything other than I think from a standpoint of these are commercial grade here, and small people that are only a third of my weight can tear a nasty hole in it. Right? They can tear one of these commercial grade machines up. And I've seen Arcade 1-Ups on display at like Best Buy and Walmart, and they're rubbed clean of any paint around the joystick.
And the artwork is like faded out.
Yeah, totally. It's gone. It's turned pure white. So I would say that might be a rougher business model from a standpoint of long lasting. You know, if you set up something in
on the flip side, they're highly available and cheap, so you could just
right, and just like have a stock of them in the back on shelves. Oh, they'd be like perfect flat on shelves, not like CRT monitors that you can't store for nothing anywhere, and you're stepping over them everywhere you go. But yeah, that I would think that would be a rougher business model to go by. I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah. I think commercial grade is. Even though it was commercial grade for only 6 months, I think it's better than nothing.
Yeah. On the other hand, you know, if you don't have that much space and you're very limited, but you have that one want, there's a Marvel vs. Capcom 2 cabinet out there that's
so
a
great,
1-Up, and it's fun to play, and it's great to have. It's on an LCD, but it's okay. You know,
absolutely,
it's fun to play.
Yeah, I mean,
and really, at the end of the day, it's all about just having fun.
It's about having fun.
Are you enjoying it? Or are you having fun? If
you're having fun, that's what it's about, man. I really do. I don't want to crap on anyone's fun, man.
It does. I will say it does bother me though when I hear other people poo-pooing on other people's parties. Like, leave them alone. Let them.
Yeah, just whatever, man. Just be cool. That's what I say all the time. Just be cool. You know, I think. If I walked into someone's house and they had a whole arcade full of Arcade 1-Ups, I would play in there just the same.
Have fun.
You know?
Exactly.
Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Not that it's worth 2 cents, but you're listening to this podcast for an hour. It must be worth something. Your time is money. It ain't worth much then either. So anyhow, any closing statements on that? Like where to get arcade games and how they're worth and what kind of good deal and all that good stuff.
I think that it just boils down to, if you're into arcades and you want the real arcade, just be prepared to do work and upkeep on it. It's a hobby that's rewarding because it's going to give you that fun, but the parts wear out. You're going to have to fix things. If you're going to rely on someone else to fix it for you, you're going to have to find those people because it's hard to find.
Yeah, it's getting tougher every day.
And you really sort of somewhat need to be a jack of all trades, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you're going to have to repair electronics. You're going to have to do woodworking. You might have to do artwork. I mean, there's all these different things that you have to do to restore and repair an arcade.
And I would also say just get really good at spreading Bondo.
Bondo. Hope you like Bondo, son.
Let me talk about that for a minute, because I hear people say all the time, because Bondo has a really bad reputation in the car industry because these crack mechanics will just Bondo anything in and paint over it and call it fixed,
right.
And that's in the arcade world,
It's not a bad word in arcade.
It's not a bad word. It's wood. Bondo is harder than the wood, stronger than the wood in most cases.
Especially some of this wood.
Yeah. So especially if it's been water damaged or something like that, right? So a lot of times we will take a water damaged arcade and skim the side of it with Bondo just to make it flat and smooth again. It's impossible to do it otherwise. But yeah, Bondo is a great thing to use. Wood filler, some of the plastic wood and some of that. Sure. We use a lot of that.
Wood hardener.
Oh yeah, I use a lot of that.
Yeah. So when we are being serious when we say you should learn how to use Bondo if you're going to
definitely get a good respirator and some good sanding pads.
And now look, sometimes I will if the damage is bad enough. I'll put a picture up here of my Gorf. I cut the entire bottom of my Gorf off, like this much of it, and built a whole brand new bottom.
Biscuit joiner or something?
I did a biscuit joint.
Okay,
I did
cool.
biscuit, absolutely. So you nailed it. So
I'm learning all kinds of terms.
Yeah, so I just copied the construction that they had, put a whole brand new bottom on it, repainted it. I put the, what do you call it, the Formica or whatever.
Yep.
Laminate?
Laminate. The laminate back over it, you'd never know that I added on to it unless you open the cabinet and look inside. But sometimes the damage is that one had water damage. It's so
Right.
bad.
Right.
We wouldn't use Bondo in those cases.
Just Bondo, the whole thing supported by Bondo.
You'd be surprised how much I fix.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what.
But you're going to get a cabinet. It's going to have a hole drilled in it where they put a big lock bar on it or something.
Yep.
You want to get rid of that. And the best way to do it is to fill that hole in with Bondo. And just paint
Agreed.
it.
Agreed.
Anyway.
Well, I love this, guys. This has been a lot of fun. And are there any arcade games, just on the way out, just a real quick, are there any arcade games that someone should play this week? Do you have an example of something that maybe the listener hasn't played arcade in a while, like an old school arcade game or something from the 80s or 90s, or even a modern game for all I care? I'm not a real stickler for rules, if you haven't noticed. But is there anything they should play this week? Anybody?
I think I'm going to go with modern new school.
Ooh, let's go.
Because I think this is very cool. But the Starship here has actually a custom-made Mortal Kombat 1 cabinet.
Hip in our
And
Mortal
if you
Kombat.
haven't
Hip
played
it out.
that arcade, it is fantastic.
So we took the NetherRealm Studios WB game, Mortal Kombat 1, not the classic 1992 Midway Mortal Kombat 1. We took that game and Mike's excellent woodwork and built a plan in SketchUp and built a 50-inch screen Mortal Kombat 1.
Huge.
And people play it constantly.
It never gets a break.
So that game, that's a funny, that's a whole topic on YouTube in itself. If that game's trash, that's not there. I'll tell you what, folks.
You put it in an arcade. And
Put it in an arcade machine and see how it does.
Yeah.
What that do is what I'm asking in arcade. It does a lot. So obviously it's set to free, so there's not having to coin it up, and it's running on an Xbox. And man, it is great. And we do have a YouTube video for that as well, the build out of that, which is pretty popular.
I'm going to say that you should go play Galaga. And
Ooh.
yeah. And,
Oh, kicking it old school.
But I'm going to challenge you to look up on the internet. I don't think people know this, but a lot of arcade machines have cheat codes. Like the up,
Little
down,
built
left,
in,
right.
little something, something.
Well, there
All
might
right.
be one for Galaga that makes it play a little different. So go check it out.
I like that. There is definitely a little something they can look up and maybe get a little further in Galaga, a little further than they ever did. Well, I am going to kick it old school as well, and I'm going to go with Williams Classic Robotron 2084.
Robotron.
I did not grow up with this game. I did not know what I was missing until I opened up this arcade, and one of the games that was highly sought after was Robotron, and we got one, and I absolutely love it. If I find a moment and I walk past that machine, it's very hard for me to stop and try to put a score on it.
And Robotron has a very unique gameplay that a lot of arcades didn't have. Like you think of the joystick and the button, it's got two joysticks, and it's just badass.
Yeah, Robotron is a dual joystick game. You don't have to hit any button except for to start it if you're a one player, two player. And once you're going, your left joystick is going to move your little guy around. I don't know his name. You're going to move him around the screen, and the right joystick, whatever direction you're pushing, is going to fire. And it's multi-directional, 8-way.
So you can move one direction and fire the other.
You can be running backwards and shooting, the other direction, which is fantastic because you got to move. And it feels almost Tecmo Bowl-ish, if you will, because you're like cutting through different linemen and the things you can't shoot, and going between things, and there's blockers blocking things you need to shoot, and you're just trying to get extra lives and learning to stay off the sides of the screen, stay off the walls, so you don't get hit with little different shots from. Yeah, it's a great game, Robotron 2084. So play it if you haven't, and if you can. The tough part about that is actually finding on a home platform, maybe a dual stick controller, because you really want to play it with two sticks. Yep. You don't want to play it with buttons. That doesn't seem right to me. This is, in the 90s, we went with games like Smash TV had the dual stick. And that was actually two-player dual sticks. So awesome. 4 joysticks, if you will. But anyway, that's my suggestion if you haven't played that. So I think we'll close right there, gentlemen.
I got one more thing.
Oh, well, we will not close right there. We're going to Mike Murray on the scene. Go.
On the scene. If you would like to be a guest on our podcast, if you own an arcade or you're into the arcade industry.
Such a good idea.
Whatever. It doesn't matter if you're here local. I mean, we might fly you in, or we might do a Zoom call. We've done that before on other podcasts, and not this podcast. But we'd love to have you. So shoot it at Mike at Electric Starship Arcade.
Mike at electricstarship.arcade.com.
Send him an email, and we'll.
I was trying to think of something for Roman. Mike Honcho at I Pose Nude and PlaygirlMagazine.com.
We'll see if we can get you on the podcast. Love to have you.
Awesome.
Roman, any parting words?
Just, look for the arcade, get something, let us know what you get. Post in the comments if you find anything or if you're looking for something. And, if I ever see anything out there and we're looking at it, we'd love to send messages back and forth. We're all a community. We're a big family out here.
And if you think Mike Woods is crazy, put that in the comments. We'll agree with you.
There'll be a lot of comments on that.
And if you're building your own arcade or your own arcade at home and you need fine parts and stuff put that in the comment too. We'd love to tell you places where we buy stuff and the Geek Pub, obviously, for Team Olden buttons and all that other fun stuff. Build plans. Until next time, folks, thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to these three guys talk about arcades and arcade machines and where to get them. So we'll see you next time.
See you in a couple weeks.